membership of the Green Mountain Support Negotiation Team. And to add an executive session regarding matters of a personal appointment. So, any objection or discussion about adding those?
I would second that.
Right, I need a motion.
Make a motion, we do what you just said.
Second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm gonna put those both, one under new business. Yeah, we'll put the first one in under new business and the very end, and then we put, I'm gonna put the executive session at the very end.
And then, the building stuff for Todd. We remove it. Can you give us an update
I
on
can give you an update. He's got a written report that's
Okay.
there as well.
it? And then his part?
But we can still discuss it.
Okay.
Okay, all right, if there's no other changes, we're going on. So approval of the minutes for the August 21st meeting.
Move.
Second. By Scott, second by Katie, any discussion? All right, all in favor of approval? Opposed? Meetings are. That brings us to our first public. Non-Stone Alliance.
See any hands? There are a few people on, which is good.
But no comment. So then that brings us to board governance.
So this was just a reminder that they twice a year, VSBA and the Vermont Superintendents Association puts on a 2-day conference, once in the spring, once in the fall. The fall one is happening at the end of October. It's open to anyone who wants to attend. So if there are any board members that decide they want to go, just let me know and we'll get you registered. Not a necessity, but they do cover usually what's pertinent and what's going on in the political landscape at this point in time, which there is a lot. Yeah, so.
Somewhat related, there's the VSBA regional meeting on September 30th, 5:30 to 7 on Zoom. Do you know what happens at the VSBA regional meeting?
So they actually have an agenda that they had posted, so I'm going back in memory here. They have been collecting commentary from districts around the state about creating their agenda for the year, what they want to be communicating to that redistricting committee. As well as like the Superintendents Association, they'll be involved with the legislators once the legislative session is open. And you know what direction that the expectation is that they push the legislature.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that could also be about previous.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. There's no more on that. We will move into monitoring.
So the superintendent's report is there. It was fairly should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm happy to answer any questions that are on it. The one piece that I'll talk a little bit about, because we're getting to the point of completion, is we've had a couple of open forums to try to gather information from the community about what their deep concerns are in terms of the redistricting efforts that are going across the state, and compiling those into a communication that is going to go to that committee as well as the state legislatures. And so the draft of that letter tried to pull on all the different themes that came up, both Ludlow, Mount Holly, and here, went out today. There is going to be kind of a final in-person open forum next week for folks if there's other things that they would like added. And of course, we're always open to email, or if people want to drop by or give a phone call, I'm happy to entertain that well. Just to make sure that that communication is as well developed as possible and as representative of the community's desire as possible as well. So I think that's the big piece. There is a little report in there that I actually wrapped up today about the impact of Act 73, the Redistricting Act, on independent student choice and kind of what that means and what's changed. There is also some requests about the paper of record. We actually had two. And so that information around the cost of both of those is also within the paper. So I don't know if there's any questions on superintendent's report, any of those other pieces, or
What's the date of that forum?
that is Thursday at 6 p.m. right here. Yeah, coming up. The week from tonight.
Is there any questions for the superintendent's report? All right, we'll move on to negotiations update.
Negotiations.
Is that me?
Well, we do have a couple of dates. I've got them. I should forgot that you guys set up. Yeah.
So the negotiations are going back to a meeting. This is happening in response to the teachers union's request that we meet 3 times before November 1st. There has not been any clarification about whether the negotiations we are entering are different from where we left that was mediation, right? Yeah, mediation.
Yeah.
So when we left mediation, the board had made a proposal that said we would be willing to talk about the salary schedule if a large group of other things went off the board. The teachers union's response to that was no. A less polite form of no, perhaps, but no. But the fact that the teachers union is interested in having these continued conversations, I think is a good thing. And is definitely supported by our lawyer and advice that we are getting. So we're going to go in with an open mind and hear what the next option.
Are there, you said there's dates set?
In October 6th is the first.
6th, 14th, 28th.
Yeah, I 6th is in my hand.
14th and 28th.
And there was one date in November, I think. 4th.
Well, we're hoping we can settle it.
Then, 6th would be a good.
Mhm.
Any questions for Lisa that won't jeopardize anything? All right, not sure what this is. Independence, is this the rural,
Yeah, we touched on this. That's happened, paper record.
or so all of these were within your report, okay?
Yeah.
All right, and then, so that'll bring us to the facilities report.
So I think the two big things, at Green Mountain, the PCBs are where they should be. Filters are working the way that they should be. In talking with Todd and Cheryl, the frustration around trying to get the money and the funding has been incredibly difficult. So we're working with a gentleman who kind of specializes in this to try to get this process moving forward and get the money at least to start off with repairing the 3rd floor here.
Right.
With the idea of making that middle school. Over at Chester Andover at the same time, we've got the project there to replace the white building that was damaged in the flooding a few years back. The problem is right now is the original intent to add on to the building is problematic because most of the building is now classified as being within the floodplain. And so the more that they have to build up the elevation to put that addition onto, the less money that's available to actually build the structure and the square footage that we need. So they've got a person who's coming out and doing a survey, who is going to exactly map out where the floodplain is. And that information will, allow us to decide is, okay, can we actually do the addition or are we stuck with a separate building?
What's the time?
It's happening now. I'm assuming by the end of the month, if not sooner. This one time. So. Lot kind of happening.
Can I just ask, when you say middle school model, is that going back to the idea of sixth graders?
Yeah.
Joining?
And again, in terms of Cavendish, with the 5 or 6 students that you have, if you want to keep them at Cavendish, keep them at Cavendish. The biggest, at least my board would have say in that, but that's my opinion. The big thing right now is we don't know how long that building project is going to take, to deal with the overcrowding that is there. So if we can get the 3rd floor here up and running and ready, and get the PCB levels a little bit lower so that the younger kids can attend. The goal would be to move them over here, and so we've got that space now. And we still got the building project that's going to come along because we don't know what the future holds in terms of district.
I have a question. Okay, what about the other spaces in the building that those children use? Is it like we're fixing the area where they're going to spend the bulk of their day, but they'll still be in other places in the building?
The
3rd floor was the worst though, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and the shared spaces are well within control.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's also the case in my partially informed, somewhat informed decision that regardless of the few 6th graders at Cavendish, it's not great for 6th graders in general to be moved up to older kids. So I think the evidence is pretty clear that you see more behavior problems and lower performance. Mostly that performance gets improved again or catches up by around 9th grade, but the behavior problems actually continue. And so I would just hope that it's taken into consideration, not just like whether the overcrowding at Chester Elementary is worse for these 6th graders than being around, 17 and 18-year-olds at Green Mountain.
I think I would also have some concerns about class of 5 or 6 kids. Is that be a funny class? Right. One addition.
Again, it'd probably be best to, if the board wants to take a look at that, we can build us a moment. That's where they, to take a peek, see where they currently stand, and then based upon that, you can kind of predict the future about, who's leaving at the end of this year, transitioning to the other school, and the 6th graders move up, and, what's going to happen is that waterfall of the students moving up first. The goal with the middle school piece up here is that's why they're relegated to the 3rd. Right. That's a part of the separation piece. There is ample space in across the building to be able to accommodate for that. And the benefits of a true middle school model where there is programming that is specific to the needs of students that are going through all the different transitions that they are can be immense. And so that's kind of where the focus is, because I would have the same concern too if they were intermingling all day long.
Well, and you think you could maybe tailor the times the classes get out so that they're not interacting with the kids.
Yeah, and the other big interaction piece is the bus.
True. Have the no matter.
There's share buses now.
Yep. All right, well, why don't we table this conversation? We can add it to I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I've had my hand up for a little while. And so I'm going to talk about this just because I want to make two points. One, I think it seems as though we've started down this track of planning to do this without talking about it and deciding we're going to do this. So for me, we need to put this on an agenda. We need to have conversations about all of this in an intentional way and not continuing moving forward with this as if it is the plan that has been decided. Unless it was decided and I don't remember that. I don't remember. I thought we were putting the addition on Chester to deal with the overcrowding, and Green Mountain was staying intact as it is. So I would propose we talk about this more formally with all of the research. I am also curious, how much money are we spending to get our money in terms of both the FEMA issue to get the money and this? You just said we're hired somebody, a consultant, maybe it's pro bono, to try to get our money from the state. How much money are we expending to get money?
So the current cap on the gentleman that we're working with, who's an expert in getting this process moving forward, is 10 grand.
Okay, and have we incurred legal fees in terms of getting money from the state or FEMA at this point?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just wanted to make that point. That's a lot of money to get our money.
But it's also an exceptional amount of cost for the involvement of myself, Cheryl, and
Agreed.
Tom.
I bet if you put all of that into the calculation to get the money from the state and to get money from FEMA, it's far more than 10,000. So I'm not saying it's not a wise move. I'm just pointing out that we are having to expend money to get the money, which is frustrating.
And we may be able to get reimbursement for those services. I think the problem for at least us is the idea that we work with them. They say that things are moving forward, but in terms of actual concrete things that have happened and changed in the work with them, there's nothing. And so we're at that point where it's a little bit frustrating.
Are you saying we've gotten zero reimbursement for the state for the PCBs, or just nothing in terms of like the moving forward?
Moving forward.
Okay,
They are coming in, right? They have been providing the funding for the filtration,
the filters.
the testing, and then for the disposal of the used filters, which is pretty much considered toxic waste at the time
Right.
that those are ready to go.
Okay, but it's the future planning, like how do we get to the next step that we're having trouble getting the money?
Yeah, and the state legislature hasn't been helpful too. Right, they only put aside 9 million. Isn't even gonna help one school. And so what the plan is to try to get about 3.5 million to do the remediation across the third floor and hopefully try to get them to do it piecemeal with us. You know, we take what we can, given the funding that they have available. And then year after year, we try to bang away at it until it's done. So that's kind of what the thought process is now.
And I wonder how much of their strategy is to, withhold the money until we get the redistricting plans in place and not put money into schools that they anticipate are going to be closing. So I just worry that, one, if we're putting our eggs in the basket of sixth graders going to Green Mountain, we have to have the PCBs figured out before we can do that. And is the state strategically not giving enough money because they know some of these schools across the state are going to have to close? Are they going to prioritize those schools that need remediation? It's hard to be in this limbo place of what do we do? I have a hard time putting all this investment into these buildings with all of this other work going on at the state level.
I agree with that, but I also think the damage that could be done by not doing anything, you gotta try at least to get ahead of it. And if that 10,000 is what it costs to get the money to do that, then not doing nothing and waiting too long, I don't think that's a good idea either.
I agree. It's just such a difficult place to be. Like, you don't know where we're heading,
agree.
and yet we have all this work to do.
And
So
anyone's gonna have that answer because the state is the state. Dealing with them is pain.
So the other folks I would remind the board in terms of policy governance, while the board is still in the process of accepting the executive limitations, the board has already accepted its governance delegation to the superintendent. And it is my responsibility as a part of that delegation to speak up if the board is kind of going outside of its role. Right now, in terms of the middle school model, what we're attempting to accomplish, it is vital to be able to reach the ends that you have charged us with. So if the board wants to stop policy governance, that's a possibility, but at this point in time, you gotta let us do our job. So that we can get things moving forward. This has been sitting for, what, a year and a half now?
But equal, like, in that policy government, the performance and well-being of the kids and their families is of utmost importance. And I understand that you're saying a middle school model is the way to reach that, or at least I think that's what I'm hearing. But I'm not hearing that focus on performance and well-being.
That's completely incorrect. We've talked about well-being in terms of prioritizing the third floor to get completely remediated. We've talked about performance in terms of the benefits of having that middle school model and being able to have programming that's specific to their needs that doesn't currently exist. So I would contest that. But again, the board can make its decisions as it wants to, but right now the policies are pretty clear about how this is supposed to be working.
I'm going to interject here. This is just reports. This is a conversation I know that is bigger than a report. So I'd like to table this conversation and move forward, and we can put it on future agenda items to discuss. Okay, so we've gone through facilities, curriculum reports.
Oh, and Melissa is here.
Okay, has everybody reviewed for paperwork? Okay.
Hi, thank you for having me this evening. I'm gonna share my presentation. And sometimes takes up to like 30 seconds before actually it unlocks, so bear with me if it freezes. I wonder if you had a chance to look at the report and the slide deck I showed in detail. What happened over the summer. We had some substantial PD that has taken place during recent professional development days, ranging from summer leadership retreat, 4 days, and then new hire orientation, another 4-day training. And then, of course, the reopening days, 3 days of in-service. If you had a chance to look at the details, and if you have any questions, I will gladly answer any of your questions. Okay, so one of the last presentations I had for you, there was some interest in looking at some longitudinal data. So I thought, since I cannot share with you the VCAP results because they're still embargoed, I thought I will bring you a report from the DBELS assessment, which doesn't affect the middle and high school. This is more for Chester Andover and Cavendish schools. And this is a measurement, actually, let me go back a couple of slides. Actually, this will do it. About students' performance. And in particular, the DBELS assessment identifies students who are in need of support in reading. So what I did is I extrapolated data from the 2023-2024 assessment, and then I tracked the same cohort 1 year later, which was a 2024-2025 assessment, to show you some nice trends I have identified. So for instance, let's look at this trend. The kindergarten class in 2023-2024 for 65 students, at the beginning of the year, so this was September of 2023, had about 49 students who were identified in need of intensive support. So we of course, implemented intervention in small groups and at the individual level. And then 1 year later, at the end of their first year, so we are here now, the same cohort of students only has 21 students in the red area, which means they are still in need of intensive support. But if you look at the beginning, we had 49 students, and within 1 year, we were able to reduce this one to 21. So I put together a graph for you for students in grades from first through sixth. And the histogram in red, the bar graph in red, shows where these students were in percentage in their, so last year, and in blue, where they were this year at the end of the benchmark assessment season, which was in May. And you can see the difference almost across all of the grades, where we have reduced the number of students in need of intensive support. And I will continue to show you some of these graphs. And I think this is really showing how our system, MTSS system and support of students is actually effective, and we can target our students individually. What questions do you have?
I have a question, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong. I was trying to follow it at TRSU as well. So when we're looking at the 23-24 cohort for kindergarten, we end the year, looks like at 57% of 39 students. The entering cohort in first grade, is 50, it's, wait, 36 is where I'm messing myself up.
You need to stagger them. So the kindergarten group in 23-24 is actually now the first grade cohort in
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm looking at like the end of the year and then the beginning of the next cohort.
Yes.
It looks like it goes up, but on the next chart, when you were showing the decrease, it looks like it went down. That's where I'm struggling.
Okay, so let's go look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers. So we started in kindergarten in 2023 with 49, the 75% identified with in need of intensive support.
Mhm.
1 year later, at the end of their first grade, we had 21 students identified in need of intensive support, which constitute only 33% of the population.
Okay, so you're going from the beginning of kindergarten to the end of first grade is what you're comparing.
Correct. So when they first entered the system,
Okay,
the
beginning,
same cohort 1 year later.
got it, okay.
Well, and it's also important that there are fewer students overall.
Yeah, it's changed, like, there's a
So,
lot.
so if students who are struggling move
Yeah.
rather than not struggling anymore, it would also show up as that.
I
So
just,
in 2023, we had 65 students. The same cohort at the end of first grade, we have 63 students. Now, it is true that if we have students moving out of the area or we have new students coming in, they can affect the population, absolutely. And some of the other grades are greatly affected by this one. But this cohort in particular, the numbers are pretty steady. We went from 65 up here, and 1 year later, they are 63.
yeah, and to Lisa's point, the mix of children, like, we don't know if a highly intensive
Right.
child moved out.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm really interested in looking at in these numbers is not only moving children out of the red intensive support area, but also
Increase.
whether the kids who are in strategic support and core support are also moving up.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
you know, improving based on that support.
And you can see it by the, like even my color coded, the blue and the green increase in proficiency. But when the students reach proficiency, we have other assessments to measure the level of proficiency, the MAPS assessment, IXL, and so forth. DIBELS is really, really useful to identify the gaps the students have, and helps us to determine what kind of intervention they need. Questions? Okay, so the other thing is that I wanted to talk to you about was the VidCap results. I cannot show you the results. I already have the graphs ready to go, and I will bring those to you at our December meeting. Again, the results are embargoed, but what I am allowed to do is to tell you about the trends I have observed. And then when I'll meet you again in December, I will have graphs, percentages, and we can have a 3-year comparison, because I remember at one of the last meetings, there was interest in looking at longitudinal data and how our students were doing over the last 3 years. And I have those ready for you. So the trends I have, is there a question? No. The trends I have observed as a general, in general, we see that in ELA, the students showed a better performance in 2025 since 3rd grade, all the way through 7th, and there was a little decline in grades 8 and 9. In math, similarly, we had a better performance from 3rd grade all the way through 6th, and then decline in 7, 8, and 9. And then science, as you know, the assessment for science is only given in grades 5, 8, and 11. These are different students. So when I will show you those graphs, I will not be able to do the longitudinal data, because these assessments still don't have enough data for the longitudinal comparison. So we're looking at different cohorts, same year, but different cohorts. We have seen an improvement on grade 5, whereas grades 8 and 11 still show some decline as compared to the last 2 years. So in December, I will have all these graphs for you with percentages and more, and we can talk more in detail about these assessments. Any questions for me?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I think one of the things that, and I brought this up year after year being on the board, that I find a little hard just being not in the profession, is I feel like that the testing and the way kids are tested changes almost like on a 3 to 5 year basis. So there's no way to accurately assess anything in it. I don't know if there's a way to people that don't, aren't reading this on the regular. Is there a way to help us see it in a more longitudinal way? Am I articulating that correctly? Is there a way to compare test to test as opposed to, because I just feel like it's like, well, we're changing the way the testing is going, so the data doesn't correspond, and we can't tell.
So the new systems that you have that are up and running have only been around for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So, she's showing you, 2 years that she can. We can't even do that with the VCAP, the state testing, because they've changed every 2 to 3 years for the last 10 or 15 years at this point in time.
Well, that's like, is that on purpose?
There's, yeah.
And I can also add, if you allow me, that the VCAP, the first year of VCAP, the results weren't even shared completely, like they're very incomplete. So literally, I will have 2 full years of data for you, full years of data, and the third is a little like inconsistent. But I will bring everything to you, and we can.
The frustration I've had long before you. This is not this is the process that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and it's a good observation, because, lots of times you're comparing different cohorts of kids when you're looking at the data. So until you get about 3 years in a trend line from that, you really can't tell what's going on.
Right.
If the kids are here this year and next year they're here, could be true. Could be variability in the test depending upon how far apart things are.
Yeah.
Could be a whole bunch of other factors, but if you get a 3rd year and the 3rd year's up here, you got a pretty clear trend, and you know that there's a positive impact in terms of what's happening.
Yeah, and then that's fine. I get that. It's just I feel like every 3 to 4 years, it's like, well, we're not going to do that testing, or we're going to change the testing, and then they're not comparative, and it's so we just have no idea consistently. Anyways, just my opinion. Sorry. Back on track. All right. Is there any other questions? That will bring us to the financial report. That is also in your packets.
And Cheryl she's still putting in the regular line by line. But we were talking about what are some ways to make this a little bit easier for folks to kind of track and understand what is going on. And so we were basically providing a summary sheet at this point in time. So what you see is you see the revenues and the expenses. You see what's been collected in terms of revenue to date. That's the actual to date, and what's been spent, and what the difference is. And then the very final column that's actually on the second page is the comparison to where, we were last year in terms of revenue and expenses. Because we figured that might be a little bit clearer and a little bit more helpful. You'll still get the line by line, but that's usually not as easy for people to suss out. But if there's changes that folks want to this, or things added or taken away, or it's not important, let us know. I also talked with her that if there's anything quirky that is showing up, right, if there's concerns in a specific budget line, or there are other things that are going on, this report would also include some bullets underneath that would kind of outline, those concerns are what we're talking about specifically.
And Cheryl, you had said Cheryl would be attending our meetings as we're going into the budgetary season, like through the process.
Yeah, she's got a lot of family stuff. I don't know if Kate.
Did you call on me?
Yeah.
I am not making any statements with what I'm about to say, but I am struck by what's going on over across the river, and wanting to make sure in Claremont, and wanting to make sure we have all of the information and controls to ensure that we know what is going on. And I would love, and maybe it's just me, but maybe it's the whole board, like some kind of information session, something on like, these are the checks and balances and controls that we have in place to ensure that we are not going to end up in a situation like that. And I don't know what that looks like. This feels like it's very minimal information. It's helpful to me, but it doesn't feel like it gives me enough to know, like, are we spending in the way that we said we would, and that everything is kind of on the up and up. And I really don't mean anything by that, other than I, as a board member, want to make sure I know enough. And I'm not sure this gives me enough, but I don't actually know what I need.
So one of the things that I would recommend, and Cheryl, and I don't mean to make Cheryl do any extra work, but she's outstanding and very gracious, is any board member can go in and sit with her. I've done that a few times where, especially when I'm looking at the entire report and I get overwhelmed, scheduling a time with her, and she will go over. So, not kind of knowing what you want to know, she may be able to help frame it for you so that you can ask those questions in a more defined way. So maybe set up a time, anybody,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea for me, for sure.
But
I said, I think that's a good idea for me. And I was just kind of following along what was happening over there, and was like, how did that happen? I'm like, could that happen here? I don't know if we have all of the kind of checks and controls to make sure we as a board are seeing everything we need to see. But maybe a first step for me is to meet with Cheryl.
yeah, I think that would be a good idea for anyone.
And then just so for clarification, this is an addition. This is not a subtraction. So you're still getting all the financial data that you've always gotten. This is just another piece on top of that. The big check and balance that you do have is the yearly audit that the state of Vermont requires, that I'm not sure whether or not New Hampshire does or not.
It seems like they hadn't had an audit in a few years, so that did stand out to me as one of the things that is important for us to see.
Yeah, and so you get the audit report every year. Usually the most important thing to look at is the summary sheet that they provide, which indicates if there's any findings, and sometimes they have some recommendations as well that we will try to implement if and when we ever get any. But you also have the opportunity, because the audit report is fairly dense, even if you're a financial person, to invite the auditors in and just have that conversation. What does this mean? What does this look like? what possible impact is there? Do we have concerns in any way, shape, or form? And that's usually a really good conversation to have.
Yeah, cough down.
Most
That's
likely.
helpful. Thank you. And I have a lot of trust in our, so I mean nothing by it. It's just was a little frightening to me to see what they're going through and the heat over there.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
Until we settle the contract, it's a big question mark.
Correct.
So
Okay.
I guess we all need to be aware of that.
Mhm.
All right, if there's no more on the reports, we'll move on into old business. So that brings us, the first one is going to be the protocol for communication from the board updated.
So if there's a highlight there, those are changes that I make based upon what was in the minutes. Kind of looking back and forth, just talking about. And again, this protocol is not for me. This is just you know, for the board if they want it, or if folks want to change it, with the idea that, you know, if we have it down in writing as a protocol, there's a consistency to it. As things come up, we're always responding in the same way, and that builds trust.
No, you know what, it was there. Got it.
Yeah, it's a big thing. Sort it out here.
Is there any discussion? Thoughts on that one?
I guess my only thought is if we are accepting this, then we also need a complaint officer. Whatever it's called.
Did we discuss that at the last meeting? Who? Don't recall it.
Right, I said that I'm willing, you said that you weren't,
Not.
and I think that's as far as we got. But I'm not jumping up and down saying, please, please me, I'm saying I'm willing.
So can you remind me the response? So remind me the responsibility of the complaint officer, because I just want to make sure that it is clear as can be.
So if there's a complaint that comes in, that requires a response within a timeline. Right, this is the person that would, you know, acknowledge, that, yeah, this has been received. Would coordinate with the superintendent, with myself to decide if there needs to be a, you know, emergency meeting, and then to try to coordinate that, and get that up and running. Those sorts of pieces. If the meeting happens, the board makes its decision, this person puts it down in writing and gets it back to that individual within the time frame that's specified. This was also one, and again, the caveat can be in there or not. There's some discussion about this at the last board meeting, that if it looks like we are going to miss the deadline, and there may be legal implications for doing so, you know, do you want the superintendent to just step in and provide the response based upon, you know, what legal counsel advises? So with me,
I guess I'm trying to think very carefully because I don't want to end up stepping on my toes. Would the person that will be the complaint officer work with you to call a meeting? Because then I think it's going to be conflicting with, like, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, the role of the chair. Again, I'm not interested in doing it, but I just want to make sure we're not inadvertently crisscrossing our own policies and stuff.
Yes.
So,
yes and no. I mean, if the board votes to delegate that responsibility of the chair to a second person, another person, that's appropriate. I mean, that's kind of what happens with the superintendent. You know, the board delegates the powers to me to carry out the parts and pieces that I'm going to carry out. But it would kind of be the same piece, but I understand the concern. So it might require a good look back at that governance portion of the policy governance that folks accepted. The governance portion is how you conduct yourself, what the role of the chair is. And so to see if potentially there might need to be any alterations there, and I can do that research.
Well, I'm also wondering if it should be, instead of like going down a whole rabbit hole, trying to change things, it's kind of in conjunction with the chair, so that the chair is up to date, but isn't having to take on that additional responsibility.
So adding it, which makes sense. Hopefully we're going right down to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can add that as a
You
specific.
know, not just speaking.
No, I mean, I think that makes sense.
Just whether it's me or the next chair, not, surprises or not having the full picture is always very hard to then walk into meetings or understand what's going on. To be able to run things efficiently. Okay, that was my only thought. Anyone else?
So it would just be you making a decision if the board can't get together.
But it would be
Plain
based
officer.
upon advice of legal.
Okay.
Yeah, usually I can usually get that pretty quick if it's an emergency. Usually within an hour or two. And so I wouldn't act unless, the deadline is, Friday. In the afternoon, and we get up on Friday morning and nothing's happened.
Sometimes it's hard to get 6 people together.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think is the reason for that. Especially if it's a odd time of year and it's a heavy vacation time.
Okay, so will this one, so you're gonna make that change and then come back next month?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, these aren't policies, so
Just protocol.
there's just a protocol, doesn't have to go through the policy. We read or anything.
We can just accept it once it's done.
Yep. And really, you're just finding yourself to it. Those two.
The next one is protocol for board vacancies.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of, I didn't see anyone went through the minutes, but.
I don't see anything related for updates. So, is there any discussion on that one or? Protocol again on policy. There a motion?
I just know that last time we had a lot of discussion about whether it would automatically go to a vote versus we would be deciding whether we were asking for the towns to vote. Right, Scott? Something like that.
I thought it was gonna be in tandem, like starting
yeah.
the process, right, it was my remembrance, like we would be starting the process of asking the town at the same time.
But then we had the discussion of, will we always do that? Or in the more typical cases where the board is, in agreement that this person would be great until the next regularly scheduled election, can we just do that? Rather than necessarily starting the election process at the same
Yeah, you
time.
did touch on that. It's obvious, in those 1%.
Right, given the expense and that we would be paying for this election.
But I think that puts us right back in the position that we're already in, is if there's all these variables, do we end up, with all the infighting of how we're gonna proceed, if it's, this particular group wants this person, this particular group doesn't, and so I don't find that, that kind of open-ended, at least not at this current time, to be helpful.
But right now, I'm not saying so the typical process outlined in here is not that it goes to vote. It's that the board votes.
Yeah, so we did discuss that it would go, there'd be like this kind of parallel process, and I don't see that
Yeah.
here.
It's not.
We had talked about it as, that's kind of what the information that we got from the state's office there, that, it's best to do it in tandem. So one of the things that you can do is that you can do the board process
Right.
and appoint somebody who then sits in the position until the vote occurs.
That way you're not.
But typically that vote is if you don't think that you've got somebody and nobody is showing up. I mean, that's the Right. That's the crux. If you get 15 candidates that all apply and say, hey, we're interested. But I'm happy to change it and update it there. The piece,
Just reading the minutes, it's kind of a little back and forth. It says there was discussion about the need to have a petition to get on the ballot, especially about there was discussion about the official declaration of vacancies, potentially scheduling a vote earlier if they knew in advance in order to start the process with the timeline. So like, no one talking, giving us notice. There was discussion about advance notice and holding an election based on the last day of service rather than the date of notice regarding that 30-day timeline. There was discussion about regular elections where someone doesn't run. Sure that that was.
Like, when do we count it as notification? When we know that no one is running, or on election day when no one was elected?
And there was discussion about how to find out about how people are going to find out about the vacancies. There was discussion about an appointed position lasting until the next vote. However, a special vote position would be held until the end of the seat's vacancy. There was discussion about showing due diligence by trying to make the appointment, and then if the board can't appoint it, it would go to a special election or with a 2/3 vote.
Right.
Election.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess it's, special circumstances alternative process.
Yeah, so I'm actually great with this policy, but I'm wondering, Scott, basically, if you are, there's nothing in here about have that special election rather than waiting until the next regular election.
I think if we discussed about it last time, it should be in there.
I don't think I'm clear on what you're saying, so I'm sorry.
That I thought our discussion last time, that Scott's point was it should always go to a town election. And I'm not seeing town election process.
That's sitting, special circumstances.
Yeah, special circumstances.
So we would need a 2/3, but whereas I thought what Scott was saying last time is he wants that special election process to initiate the special town election to initiate in parallel with the board appointment.
And then cancel, and then that's right, and then we would cancel the vote if we were able to. That's what I mean. I thought we talked about that parallel.
We did.
Late, yeah.
Right, but I
You're
don't
not
see
seeing
that
it
in this
reflected
policy. I could be
So
not wrong.
do we want that? Do we want like the parallel process or are you good with this? Do you want it changed?
I think it should be parallel.
I'll agree.
So does it get initiated? So let's talk the timeline. So if we have notice or someone just quits, do we just immediately start the process of a special election at the same time? Like, so it's from the beginning.
Have to, right?
Not for, I mean, that's what we're deciding right now, is that what we're looking to do? So at the declaration of vacancy, it's gonna be the initiation of both our process defined and a special election, not doing it as a special circumstance. And then if we're able to, as a board, come together, figure it out, vote
Right.
somebody in that time frame, that we cancel the election.
I'll agree with that.
I think that's kind of what we.
Yeah.
I agreed on last week.
I think the only thing that we have to be mindful of is, the cost, like if we pull it together in the timeline, like, I guess we pull it together in the timeline, how does it necessarily have to go forward with it? It would be after that timeline ends, that would, okay. I just want to make sure that like, we're not
Yeah.
causing the town to incur the cost, and then we're like, never mind.
Because we have to pay for the cost, not the town.
It's the town that pays for it. I think it's the town. that pays for it.
Yeah.
I thought we were told last time that we had to pay for
I think if we as in taxpayers, the town.
And we all pay for it no matter what.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
it. But hold on, I thought it was the board last time.
I'll check the actual legal, I know NOSSD, the school
But for
The town, the town has to, is the only body, yeah, the town is the only body that has the power to actually carry out.
Right.
But they're doing it on their behalf, so usually, in my experience, I don't know if that fired, that's what I know. But I'll do that research.
I think I remember speaking about it. That was my thought process was, just saying Cavendish. Landover has no say on who Cavendish lets.
Right.
Right.
But if the board still has to pay for it,
Okay, so you're gonna find out who would own the cost of the election. And then you'll update it to parallel process, or do we want to wait until we know that information?
Let's wait till we.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right, so pending the information regarding who would own the cost of the election. Then we can make the decision about the parallel.
We might go find out.
Somebody?
You got good.
Okay, wait, all right, so let's move on. We can revisit this then. Get an answer, and if not, we'll put it on, we'll just move it. I have lots of my paperwork. Okay,
Yes.
yes,
School
one.
days.
School pays, okay, well, there we go, all right. So back. All right, so the school board meetings are.
Wait,
No. Okay, never mind.
That doesn't make sense. How does the school pay for a town election?
because the school is requiring that the town have an election.
And the number on that.
Well, let's just wait. What?
so we're two separate entities.
Yeah.
The town is, it's weird in Vermont. Town is its own separate entity. We're completely separate from each other. It would make sense from that perspective. So I'm not saying I'm right, but the logic of it is this is to serve our needs,
Sure.
not the towns, because we're separate entities. So we're paying them to provide us with that service.
Have to pay for the balance possibly, but not the meeting.
Okay, it's the balance.
And usually I have never had a town actually charge us for the manpower. That's usually my guess is they probably could. But we'll find out.
Yeah, we might have already said this, we know what that number is. Was it $400 to $800, something like that?
Somebody
It was less than
once
that.
at some point in time, it's like.
And it depends on the town, it's gonna be cheaper in the end.
Less than all. Sure. Right.
So shall we just revisit this?
The.
I got it. That's the check.
Continue on. All right, so that brings us to policy adoption of F3 asset capitalization.
I move that we accept.
Second,
I'll second.
Scott? Any discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting F3? Opposed? Right. Right, and let's see, executive limitations, interpretations of 2.0 and 2.8, second read. There's some highlighted sections for, wording that was changed, last one.
I move to approve.
Second. Okay, so, moved, 80 seconds, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry, I didn't get unmuted fast enough for the discussion. Can we go back in time?
Yep.
I was a little struck by Lane's comment earlier about the conversation around kind of changing the structures of our school as being within the limits of the executive. And I had thought we had a conversation about kind of changing schools, closing schools, moving kids as part of what we wanted to know about as a board. And then I just went and read it, and I don't see anything in here about that limit. And so I am concerned that this authorizes the superintendent to make significant changes to the way in which our schools operate without board involvement. And so I would like to see more of our involvement in things like changing where students go to school. Like, could you just decide that the Chester sixth grade is going to Cavendish, or that everybody, like, it feels like I'm not clear on the interpretation.
So there are multiple sets of policies. So, right, you have the ends policies, which are about the goals that the board would like to see achieved on behalf of the district. These are executive limitation policies, so it's not contained within these. You have what are called governance policies, which you approved, that is about how you interact with yourselves. And one of those policies is the authority that is delegated to the superintendent. And so that's the one that you want to take a look at to see what that says and potentially adjust if that's what the board wants to do.
Can you bear with me and help me see that? I have all of them up, and in order for me to vote on this, I need to see that somewhere else. Otherwise, I feel like I am just confused. I'm sorry. We're new to this. So can you tell me where I would see that, where I would expect to see something like that? Like, for example, the superintendent can't close a school. I would like to see that. Like, where would that go?
He's trying to answer.
In the
Oh, sorry.
shared folder, there is a document that is called board, I think it's board governance. So it's got all of your policies there, ends, executive limitations, it's a handbook. So it is in one of the shared folders that you have. I don't think this is a part of the discussion on the agenda, but I'm happy, Kate, if you want to sit down and I can pull that out for you, or I can try to email it to you in the morning if it's difficult to find.
No, I don't understand how this is not part of the conversation. I'm asking if that concept lives within the executive limitations or it lives in another policy. And if you're telling me it lives within another policy, all I want to know is what policy would I expect to see it? I have that document open. I just want to know where I would expect to see it if not in the executive limitations.
It is in your governance policies, and it is the title of it, without having it in front of me, is it's like delegation to the superintendent.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for I don't know what the technical Robert's rule is, but I'm gonna ask for a recess so that I can look at that, so that I can make an informed vote on the executive limitations.
How much time do you want?
3 minutes.
A request for a 3-minute.
Thank
you. We're in recess. We're in recess at 7:03.
Adrian, just a housekeeping thing. In the agenda, it says F3 for what you just did, the asset capitalization. On the page that I was looking at, it's F23. Just so that,
Policy F23.
yeah, just so it gets into the minutes right, I guess.
The capitalization is policy F23 on top of the policy, and in the agenda it says it. Thank you.
Kept looking for 3.
On it. I'm intrigued.
Under board management.
Yes.
You all set, Kate?
I am. Thank you for bearing with me as I make sure I know what I'm doing.
All right. Anybody want the last minute, or are we good to return? Actually, it's up. All right, so we are out of place as
No, there's no page numbers on this document, so I almost had to come back on and say I need 5 minutes because there's no page numbers.
All right. Further discussion?
Further discussion?
All right, so going back to this, if it's still accurate, Lisa's made a motion and Katie has seconded it. All in favor of adopting EL 2.0, 2.8? Opposed? All right, that brings us into new business, and we have a contract approval.
We put that on their standing in cases we're hiring. Because lots of times the hire will happen like right before the board meeting. So there are none.
Okay. All right, and then the next one is discussion about appointing a GMUSD alternate for teacher negotiation committees.
Sure, I'll try to correct and fix it wrong. So these negotiation meetings are not official board meetings in any way, and so we don't actually require a quorum. But in the recent request for additional meetings, it's the case that we can't all be there all the time. So we have most definitely found times when at least one member of each board can be there, the Level Mount Holly and Green Mountain Board. But there are times when the other person can't be. So the question would be, do you want us to go ahead with one of the two people there? Or do you want an alternative from the Green Mountain Board to be in that place?
Do you mean one of you two, or?
Correct.
All right, is that happening on a frequent basis that?
No, I mean, we try to schedule the meetings when we can always be there, but these meetings coming up in October, there were no such dates that we could
Both be on?
both be there all the time.
Are you guys having discussions so that you're on the same page at all times?
I wasn't aware that there were. I can be at all the meetings that.
All three in October? Okay. That's great.
Is this a non-issue?
That changes things.
It does.
Okay.
Right? It's not fun.
Big ones.
I had to go back and check now. What are the three, I know it's the sixth,
The 20.
Yeah.
6,
14th and 28th. Never
28th
mind.
to 30th, 28th, I think.
That should be okay.
And it,
I'll be away,
Can you make-
I will be away
Yes.
from the 15th to the 20th.
So this is
That
the
was-
6th, the 14th, and the 28th.
It should be okay.
and I guess that I just kind of
Yeah.
tie that up nice and neat. You guys are in discussion, so I'm assuming
Yeah,
if you're
if
going,
I
you guys
would-
are on the same
yeah,
page.
Well, I would think it would be very difficult. This is not an easy thing. And it would be very difficult to have such,
Right.
who hasn't been part of it.
No, I agree.
Anybody had to start from the
Part.
beginning.
Seems not seem to make any sense. to me.
No, as long as one of you is there, you guys are in discussion.
So that's
I
kind of,
don't
I
see
can
this
see
as an issue.
that you two are pretty well on the same page with that,
I
so.
think so. Okay. Right.
So yeah, we can approach it that way instead. If one of us can't be there in the future, rather than reaching out for a substitute,
Ahead of
we can
time.
talk to each other about, is there any concerns that one person should figure out?
Okay, there you go.
Cool.
All right, moving on. All right, so now we are on mandated policy updates from the VSBA. We are also in your packet.
Yeah, so this is the whole herd. These are the mandated policies, that all boards are required to have. The VSBA, contracts out, with a legal firm who is also our legal firm, to develop the wording for each of these policies for districts around the state to use. So, typically it's not a good idea to change the wording unless you've got something that you think is really critical, then we can go and ask legal counsel about. But these are policies that are required to be in place. When we were doing the update, the transition from the old district website platform to the new one, we started a massive review of all those mandated policies. And some were out of date. There was one or two that looked like they were missing. And so we figured it's just easier to do this en masse. We'll take the most recent versions from the VSBA, present them to the board. And then we know that everything is up to date as it possibly can be, and that we're in compliance. The idea was to present 2 sections each month. So you're getting the A's and the B's. It goes up through the S. So that you get a packet like this quite regularly and close to everything updated.
And this is just the first read.
Yeah.
So you guys want to, because it is a large number, you'd like to take your time for next month?
Here.
Okay.
So does this mean we're disbanding the policy?
Oh, the TRSU policy? We
I'm
talked
sorry.
about that in TRSU and we didn't know.
I'm good. I'm
There-
asking that question. 'cause
So
that's-
these are mandated policies, so you got to have them.
Right.
There are also recommended and possible policies that VSBA puts out. And so those are things that, if the committee, might be worthy of discussion, right? Most districts, unless they actually need the other policies for a specific reason, right, a need that exists within that district, they tend to leave them out. But if there's a specific need in the district that one of those policies addresses, then a board may take a look at it. Right, my experience just.
I do think the reason for the TRSU policy committee is because we were actually trying to write policy and that takes a whole lot of time. So the TRSU might want to consider not having that.
And I have to
Well,
think
it was,
think the policy governance kind
it
of
was
changes
a,
the dynamic
yeah,
as well,
I mean,
so,
it
yeah.
was it was a district meeting.
Yes.
There were people from, but we weren't on that for a while. Just
All right, let me bring
All
that back,
good.
bring those back for a second read.
don't need
Next
any
month.
extra.
All right, so executive limitation first read for 2.1 and 2.2. Want to take a few minutes now? And we can back next month.
Yes, please.
Do you want us now or next month?
Next month.
I'll say next month.
Oh. All right, so next month. Great. That brings us to our budgetary discussion, using district resources instead of contracting out and savings.
That was the lawn mowing.
And that was in,
Send those packets.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You lost some of them. I don't think we have any doctors.
It was,
email.
was a part of the. Yeah, related to the paper of record. It was at the beginning.
It's on it. Ah, got it. Yeah, one's up front.
Yeah, I've been hearing things different. Completely out of order.
I still say you guys should vote yourselves computers and. Have on a shared.
Same thing, vote yourself out there, so.
Yeah, and didn't you just look this stuff up right on the shared drive, right while you're sitting here?
Okay.
Was.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand the connection between paper of record and lawn mowing.
They asked the same, the two questions at the same time.
Got it.
Basically, my thought is we pay to have Chester Andover lawn mowed. And Cavendish does not. Cavendish Town actually mows their lawn. And, Green Mountain has a mower, Green Mountain has a truck, Green Mountain has a trailer. We used to go down and mow softball fields. When we had a softball team, don't do that anymore. Why don't we just send the mower to Green Mountain, save $8,000 in our budget? Do it in-house.
And it's not blocked, but I think it is.
Savings.
I mean, if we have the equipment and the manpower, that's a no-brainer. I mean,
Yep, three in this building? Custodians? Three? Yeah.
So if this is an interest, then, what I would recommend is the board make a motion for us to investigate this. I can figure out like, what, if any, cost there would be to kind of transition over. And we can kind of compare it with the 8,000 that's already been paid. My understanding is there's also some other mowing that happens that's paid for on a case-by-case basis.
that was gonna be my question too. Is there any additional pruning, tree trimming,
Yeah.
things that are tied to that,
Yes.
that inflates that cost?
Because they would, I'll just say, I drove by the school Sunday and there's re-pruning going on too.
So is the question, is it in addition?
In addition,
It's got a competition.
All right, so
and is that the person who has this contract, are they the ones who point that stuff out and ask for it to be done, or?
We'll find out.
Okay.
all right, so need a motion to instruct, I'm sorry, Kate.
So I'm just gonna ask this question, even though it makes me feel very stupid. I don't understand how this is. So the conversation that we had earlier about policy governance and not having a conversation about students being moved to a different school and changing the school is out, that's policy governance. That's something that the superintendent decides. And this is something that we're going to put a motion on. And can you help me understand why this is our purview?
Yeah, that was exactly my question, is that who is mowing the lawn is not micromanagement, and people without the necessary qualifications to make that decision is on the table, whereas where sixth graders go to school is micromanaging and we shouldn't touch it. That
And
feels
I'm really looking at it for I just need clarity because I'm feeling confused about what is and what isn't based on policy governance as I'm learning. But this feels micromanagey to me. And that seems like that would be within the superintendent's kind of decision to make. I'm just looking for help.
I'm happy to respond.
Thanks.
The earlier comment was not meant to state that being micromanaged. I was simply pointing out the provision within your own policies that you need to follow. In terms of this being micromanaging, yes, you are correct. I was thinking about other things as we were talking about this, so I apologize.
I don't mean it as criticism in the way in which you shared. I think that's part of our policies, is that you hold us accountable to our policies. I truly don't understand why one is out of the policies and one is in of the policies. Like, is this our job to decide mowing the lawn versus not mowing the lawn and what you do with your facility staff?
So to put it in a general format, your purview is really kind of high level overview. Are we moving the district in the direction that the board wants it to move? Everything else for the board should be pretty much hands off. You create the policies that direct our actions or limit our actions. But then the main function is just that high level overview is in terms of the ends, and the other things that have been deemed important that the board has put down in policy. Are we moving in that direction? And if not, then that's where you hold us accountable.
So would it be, I'm sorry, I just stepped over somebody.
I was just going to say, so then in this vein, our policy, our governance policy is, I don't even know what it says, but I'm sure it says something about we want you to be financially responsible. We want you to be looking at the budgets and making wise decisions with our money and your staff, and that this would not be something that I would want to have you doing research on if it's at our direction. That feels outside of our scope. I feel like that's not the best way to spend our time, and I would defer to Lane to make the decisions about the lawn mowing and what he does with staff.
And Kate, you are correct, so I can read the pertinent part of your policy here. As long as the superintendent uses any reasonable interpretation of the board's ends and executive limitations policies, the superintendent is authorized to establish all further procedures, make all decisions, take all actions, establish all practices, and pursue all activities. Such decisions of the superintendent shall have full force and authority as if decided by the board. So you guys, I think, that's the normal wording in policy governance. And so Kate is correct. But if that, again, I think it's important for me to say this. The board's got to decide either policy governance or not, right? Because where we're bumping into conflict is when there's role confusion. So earlier on, this was pertinent to me because I've been doing a tremendous amount of work with folks on getting the middle school up and running to meet the board's ends. This piece just didn't click. It was not a sequitur to me because it was so small. That's not something we've been working on. So it just didn't register to me that Kate is right in terms of what she's saying.
But we also, the board, decided that each of these policies wouldn't actually take effect until we reviewed them with the interpretation.
But this policy is in effect because this is not an executive limitation. When you voted to adopt policy governance, that covered these two categories of policies. Those are currently in effect. The executive limitations are policies that are outside of this. That that was where the agreement was that, we'll do the interpretations, board will take a look at it, see if that's kind of what the intent was, and then change your.
I thought we were doing that with all of the policies, not just executive.
You tell me, you're the board. What's the board's purview? What's the board's choice?
My understanding was the limitations. We were going to be, he would give us the interpretation and we would vote with that. It aligned what our goals were, was my understanding. So we were going to be going through the limitations individually, not the overreaching decision to do policy governance.
I agree with the overreaching decision to adopt policy governance, but the actual policies are not just executive limitation policies. They're the ins and the, and I thought over the entire year, we were going through those ins and the interpretation of them and the evidence that would be in support of those and adopting those as we went.
Maybe I misunderstood.
My memory was executive limitations, but again, it's the board's decision.
It was policy governance, and then we were deciding on the guardrails as we were going. It wasn't what the policy government.
That's
feel like
what I recall. But again, it's the board's, so what I might recommend is, making a motion for clarity. And making a motion on, if you want that to be changed, that current thought, you could do that.
My whole thought of this was just try and do everything that we can in-house.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem silly to me.
No, and it's not inappropriate if folks have ideas to bring them up, because sometimes they're ones that we haven't reached ourselves, and hey, that's a good idea.
And
I think investigating this is a good idea.
the micromanagement where I don't want that to deter people from saying, oh, well, perception from the public when we have a mower and employees in a truck and a trailer and we used to do it, yet we're hiring it out to a subcontractor when We could completely do it in-house and to me, no amount of savings is too little.
Right.
A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. And the public, I don't think they care so much. They want to see us make smart decisions, save money. So,
So what I was gonna say, when Kate, after Kate was talking, was I kind of, I see her point and I see the point brought up here. I think it would be maybe best if we say we are trusting Lane and his executive team to make, to not waste money. So to look, to be looking at this and your decision is, yours to make, but asking you to look at it, is that appropriate?
Yeah, I'm reflecting in the middle of things, because like I said, my mind was elsewhere and all the other details. But the appropriate way under policy governance to go about getting this done is to make it into an ends policy. It is the expectation that wherever reasonable savings can be incurred, that is pursued, something along those lines.
What EL would that be in? Does that need to be addressed? Then,
If, again, that's the board's decision. If you want to create a policy, that's kind of how you communicate what you want. So you create a policy around this. My guess is it kind of ends. It could, executive limitations it would fit into as well. Because it's kind of saying what I can't. You can't be going out getting contracts outside of the district that are going to cost significantly more than just doing it in-house, right? That could be a way of approaching it from an executive.
that's what I'm saying. What EL is that? Addressing that?
Probably the next ones we're going to cover, which is under the financials. There's two that deal with financials.
and it may,
Oh, sorry.
God, my fingers are pushing all the buttons. I just wanted to say I in no way think anything that was brought up is silly. I think that my point is I need to understand this, and I think we have to adopt it or not adopt it. And I have seen a lot where we get involved in facility stuff, but then the other stuff we're kind of not. I don't want to say allowed because we're allowed to do anything, but we don't get involved in. And I want to apply policy governance across the board. So I think that's a good medium, is that if we need to look at that policy and have it be more explicit about cost savings or whatever, then we should. But I'm just trying to be consistent and learn, because we're kind of speaking a different language here now.
Yep.
So the next two ELs are non-budgetary, it's treatment of students, and parents, and guardians, and treatment of staff.
That's one you've got this round. So that's the first reading. You did, so you're on the first three to treatment of students and parents and guardians and treatment of staff.
Are you saying the budgetary ones are these two?
Yeah, so next meeting, I believe next meeting, without going in and checking the annual agenda. That's probably what's up, because we're entering budget season and they're trying to tie them.
Time together, is that, so, I mean, I remember we have access to all of these prior to, so like, why don't people go like forward and read through and that way we can have more timely discussion, like, self-included. Okay, does that?
Specific numbers of policies that we're looking at.
Do you have
I
the
pull it up on the
calendar, yeah?
Second.
And I would like clarity on whether we have, as a board, adopted all of the ends as they are written. Or if we are also going through those one by one with interpretations and voting on them, which was my understanding from when we adopted policy.
I think, because we went through all of the executive limitations that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be misunderstanding. I thought we all kind of were like, yes, this is like the framework, and then we're going to be addressing, two at a time, and like narrowing them and like kind of, so like they're in effect, but we're going to, over the course of the year, fine tune them, was my understanding. So they're in effect so that we have something to be able to, you know, basically tell Nate how to do his job. And as we're going through, we are fine tuning the ELs to, you know, basically making them tighter or just adopting them, you know, saying, yes, no, that is fine exactly the way they are. That was my understanding.
So we could definitely go back to the minutes and, but my understanding is that, this board and not TRSU specifically said, yes, we want to adopt policy governance as a framework. But then we're going to go through, I thought, each of the policies, including the ends, not only the executive limits, and get the interpretation, and that it was going to be an actual year-long process of adopting those policy by policy.
Maybe we should go back to the minutes because I have a completely different understanding.
Yeah.
So, I'll look at that. And bring it next meeting.
So next month, 2.4 financial planning and budgeting.
Perfect. Will be the first read. So, you know, we have the first read of these, but maybe it would be good to go ahead and pre-read the next two after that. All right, so we'll minutes for. All right. For any more discussion about this budgetary discussion? Okay, move on then. Brings us to our next public comment. Let's see.
I hadn't seen.
And then board comment.
Guess my only board comment will go back to what we were just discussing. When, nothing against you, Lane, or any other superintendent, but when you come to us with a budget saying this is it, we can't cut it. And I can tell you can by a little bit. It's a concern.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I know, but I just want it public that it's a concern.
And maybe because from what I read, this hadn't been out to bid since before you, Lane, is that correct?
Yes.
So maybe it wasn't on your radar.
True.
And maybe it should have gone to bid sooner. And maybe that would have a different outcome.
I think Cheryl said that her response. But so I really highly encourage everyone to read not just the two first reads that are on here, but move forward and read the next two.
Yep.
Because clearly that's going to be some discussion.
So going on the book record, my first year on board, we voted in when we assigned chair and vice chair. My second year
Or,
for book of record.
oh, I'm sorry, I
Whatever.
switched subjects on me. Yes. What are you asking? So yes, that is something that we did miss. We missed book of record. We missed adoption of which version of Robert's rules was going to be utilized, and that's it. What did you say? Chair and vice chair?
So just when we voted them in, that's when we did it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, that was what it was. It was an interesting.
And again, we're paying for two, but we will legally have to have.
I'd say that's an annual.
I'm unclear that you legally have to have any. It's best practice and you are required by law when a warning goes out, but it goes to a local news agency, and the expression that they also used was or news or radio station. But in terms of explicitly having to, yes, it's best practice because you want people to know where to look if they want to get the info. But I was not able to find a statute specific. Just that when you send it out, you got to send a warning to, one of the local newspapers or radio station.
And again,
Can that change any
time, or is it the same? Who do you send it?
If I remember reading that back during COVID, it was nondescript about that. It just said you have to send it to one.
And again, going back to why I have that brought up was because social media. I mean, Green Mountain Community Court have, or who has social media, why
But
can't?
some of us live under a rock.
Well, we're paying one that is all social media and the other one is paper. That's what I'm saying. So why have social media when you can do it yourself in-house? And save a little bit. That's all.
I also had a board comment.
Okay.
So I think that we continue to focus on a lot of things other than the student performance and well-being. And I think that there are two major things that we could do or that our superintendent could do towards helping student performance and well-being. One is to have a later start time for high school students. And the other is to either decrease the number of transitions from school to school or have those transitions later. I think the evidence shows that both of those things are better for performance and way better for behavior.
On transitions, can you explain?
Moving from one school to another. So like if you have kindergarten through 8, students do better than if you have elementary school, middle school, and then high school. And if you have those transitions from elementary school to middle school at a younger age, it's more detrimental than if it's at a not that any of those are easy things to do.
Right, doesn't that kind of circle back to like the overcrowding?
Yeah. Yep.
If we would be afraid to.
Right.
To
Yeah.
just Andover.
And for high school, like a start time of like 9:30 is most effective.
Till,
Not for
with
the,
a
not
normal,
for the parent.
the same dismissal time?
Yeah.
I,
In terms of performance of the kids, they do better in school.
Are you saying for a shorter day?
No,
No, later.
full day,
Later
later
dismissal?
start time.
It's same number. It's just starting.
Yeah.
at 9.
yeah, that,
It's for like what, 4:40?
that might be better for parents in the afternoon and not so much in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Not easy answers.
No, it's not an easy thing to do, but it is very effective. And it's specific to high school students. For elementary school students, that's not true. But once kids reach puberty and adolescence, those early mornings are not a time when their brain works, basically.
Can I add another comment? So we talked about it a while back, trying to get, let's say, special ed teachers to come to our school that other districts needed. You know how we always send kids, like you send kids all over the place. And I remember we had a conversation quite a while back about trying to get some of those special educators here and trying to get other schools to send their children to us. So we cut our transportation costs and also. Yes, right, yes. Makes sense. And we haven't heard anything about that.
There are 2 programs that were built this year. One has 12 kids in it that were brought back and one is.
Okay, I think I did hear that.
There's actually a third one, and Mary's probably the best person to speak to it because she's been instrumental in making it happen. She actually responded with seeing the magnitude of the budget increase last year and said, you know, this is one of the ways to get savings. So she was actually trying to build 3 programs, couldn't get the staffing. And so, during the budget discussions, those savings were actually in the slides.
Can you define the 2 programs that already exist?
So one of them is a life skills program. So these are for students that need the basics. One of them out of the two, I believe, is the students that are on the IEP disabilities for elementary students.
I assume the third.
And it's the autism one, what she did do was she shifted some of the resources, because of the number that is showing up in preschool. And so they are expanding the preschool program that they have.
What is the registration of preschoolers at?
Best question, that would be to, oh, you mean the enrollment?
Yeah.
Oh, is it
7 of 10.
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, so the goal was 10. And not going over that, takes about 3 years for things to settle in. Because you really need new students that are like brand new to preschool, period. Because if parents have already established their child in a preschool, the odds of them, pulling them out of that programming and putting them in someplace new are pretty low.
Just FYI, and yes, because my husband's on DRV, and I understand that there's talk about putting some kind of childcare facility on 1 and 3 just before you get to the green to the rich. It's where there was a diner. There is one.
The chat and shoot. It will chat and shoot.
Yeah.
There'll be a few here.
Yeah, no.
It's just been a conversation. I just thought it was interesting.
Comments? So we have the addition of an executive session that's been requested. So someone would care to read that, enlighteningly.
I move that the board enter executive session to discuss personnel employment with the superintendent present as provided. 1 VSA section 313 subsection.
Second.
In this case, do we need a first motion should say that this matter requires? Okay, thank you.
So Lois has made the motion. Lois has made the motion and who seconded it? Katie? Any discussion? Favor of entering into executive session, Biting Lane? Aye. Discussion and 7 paper.
Just 8. Just a sec. Reflecting on fixation. Apologize.
We're out, right? All right, we're out of executive session.
Yep.
Okay, so out of executive session at 8:17. Our next future meeting and agenda items, what I have listed is 6th grade at CTS. I don't know if that needs to be further defined. Clarity regarding policy governance and EL acceptance and addressing the minutes. You wanted to look back into the minutes, we can do that.
Coming out of executive session, don't you have to come out with some sort of answer?
That we're
That will
taking
be
no
made
action.
that-
Yes, thank you. So at
To cover it.
8:17, out of executive session. All right, is there anything else people want on the future meetings?
No, I just need to tell you, I will not be here at this conference.
I might not be here.
That's 3 people that,
I don't know if I can get internet down there.
okay, so.
That's a might. I'll let you know.
You don't have to offer an explanation, I just want to make sure we'll have a forum.
Do we want to move? Well, you got everybody around the table. This was.
You won't be here?
Oh,
Is that your first?
That is now.
I won't be here on the 16th either.
Oh,
I don't want.
Sorry.
so,
Now 5 people.
yeah, so we are now without a quorum on the 17th.
the 16th.
So, we can move it out a week to the 23rd. Will people be available on the 23rd?
I think we go back Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was tired, but.
Yeah, I think.
I was so excited.
I think I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation that week, but the intent is that, we've got two people with superintendent's licenses, and this is good capacity building. We've got Deb and we've got Louisa, and so my intent was to have Deb manage things happening on the Logo Mountain Poly side, having Louisa. I don't know if the board is comfortable with her, being part of the meeting. You've got some complicated stuff that you're eventually talking about. If that were the case, I would recommend that maybe those things get moved to a later meeting.
Look at the dirty.
I'd rather.
What's the, well, there's something on the 30th. There's an open forum on the 30th.
I can move it open.
So is the 30th more appropriate?
Can we do the Wednesday?
Can we do what?
Can we change the
That was the
Wednesday?
30th, one of the dates for the
For
negotiation.
negotiations.
The 29th is.
No, it was the
Logo.
28th, it was the negotiations.
No.
Yeah, 28th.
It was,
I mean,
the 6th, the
30th
14th,
was
and the
something.
28th.
Oh, that was that thing.
We did not.
Oh, yeah, you guys have that.
The regional meeting is then, but that's fine. It's, if this is in the.
That's
evening.
September 30th.
Yeah, this is the VSBA meeting.
Yeah. Not the 29th, that's my birthday.
Dress up.
No.
So it's the 30th, does the 30th work?
30th works for me.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Let's move it to the
Sure.
30th.
and I'll move that open for.
And we.
I will not be here on the 30th.
And I'm a maybe for the 30th. Less than can.
This also, we missed, you wanted to confirm membership.
Almost
with the Green
Chester,
Mountain
yeah.
Community.
Yeah,
That's what they keep.
Missed it. Yeah.
You're still in the regular meeting. That's on the agenda, so.
Yeah, we have to.
So the support staff on the Green Mountain side, their contract is up next year, so this is time to start negotiations. I did reach out to them and ask them if they were interested. Of course, they are. So it's appropriate to reconfirm. We have two folks that are currently on that team, reconfirm if that is still the case. And then also decide if,
Yeah, right, so. I think I don't know Rick's intention, he's planning to run again, so I don't know if he'll be available, but currently it's Rick Alexander and Katie Murphy.
so I don't know if you want me to connect with him, or if the board just wants to reconfirm or decide who you're sure you want to be.
When would negotiations start?
They can start as soon as humanly possible.
Oh, so potentially it could be. Yeah, so connect with her.
Who's up?
Okay.
In the.
Okay, is there more to that?
Nope, and you're good?
She hasn't said yes yet. I'm just saying.
Can you follow up later?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so if there is no more on future agenda items, and we have now decided on October 30th, 6 p.m. here, that
Motion to adjourn.
two motions for adjourn.
Second.
Scott and Jerry. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Adjourned at 8:23.